Hello, future leaders of the world. I'm here to talk to you a little bit today about becoming a servant leader. Yes, you heard that right, a servant leader. Now, I know that some of you are trying to reach for the mouse and click on a different video, but give me about 8 minutes of your time. Being a servant leader is not what you think it is. Come along with me and I'll show you. Now, I know when I said servant leadership, this is probably the picture that came into your mind. A servant serving their master, doing their master's bidding, that kind of thing. But the fact of the matter is, we all use servant leadership every day. Being a servant leader means that you're concerned with the people that you're working with. You're concerned for them professionally and personally. You can empathize with them. You want to nurture them to bring out the best in them. Servant leaders are characterized by putting their followers first, seeking to empower them and lift them up, and really help them develop all those personal capacities that they possess. There are 10, count them, 10 leading characteristics of servant leaders. Listening, having empathy, emotional healing, being aware, being persuasive, conceptualization, foresight, stewardship, a commitment to the growth of people, and building community. I'm just going to touch on a couple of these real quick. A great servant leader has amazing listening skills. They're listening to their followers. They want to know what are the issues that their followers have and how can they best serve them. They can empathize, which basically just means being able to put themselves in their followers' shoes. We all come from different backgrounds. We have different perspectives of the world. So it's important for a servant leader to really be able to connect with and empathize with their followers in that way. I'm going to talk real quick about the commitment of the growth to people. Great servant leaders are willing to empower their followers. Empowering means that you're willing to give a little bit of your power away instead of keeping it all for yourselves. When you help other people grow, as a group, you collectively become stronger. And that really is helpful when you're fostering, building a community that's working towards common goals for the betterment of society. There are 3 main conditions that impact servant leadership, and these are context and culture, leader attributes, and follower receptivity. So, what does this all mean? Well, the first one, context and culture, refers to the fact that different cultures around the world view servant leadership differently. Servant leadership in the United States looks different than servant leadership in Africa or in India. A lot of other cultures also have characteristics of servant leadership built into their religions. Hinduism, Confucianism, Christianity, they all have characteristics of servant leadership. Leader attributes just means that each leader is an individual. They're all different, and some of them aren't as good at servant leadership as others. So it really kind of depends on how well that servant leader has been able to hone their craft. And then follower receptivity, that just means are followers open to a leader that is practicing servant leadership? Do they want to have a leader that really cares and shows that they care, goes over and above what would be deemed normal by leadership standards? All of those things can have a really big impact on servant leadership. Servant leadership has a lot of strengths, but I summarized the 3 top ones for you. The first one is that it makes altruism the central component of the leadership process. What is altruism, you say? Well, altruism is when a leader puts aside their own self-interest and works selflessly to ensure the well-being of their followers. Servant leadership also provides a counterintuitive approach to the traditional view of power in leadership. We typically think of leadership as a leader kind of at the top of the pyramid and everybody else following what the leader does, the leader executing supreme power over their followers. But servant leadership really puts the power in the hands of the followers. A servant leader is trying to give their power away to empower others to act. So that's a little bit different than what most people are used to. And the third strength is that servant leadership is measurable. It's been proven to work again and again. So if researchers have found that, there's no reason why you can't go out and be a servant leader. Servant leadership also has some weaknesses. One of the big things is that the paradoxical nature of the title, servant leadership. When I first told you that we were going to be learning about servant leadership, probably becoming a servant popped into your mind. And that's par for the course for a lot of people when they hear servant leadership. They don't want to learn how to be servants. But as you're learning, servant leadership is so much more. The second weakness is there's a little bit of a debate about the core dimensions of servant leadership. What is a true servant leader? A lot of it is different depending on the culture that you come from and the way that leaders are viewed in your society. And the third weakness of servant leadership is that it kind of has a little bit of a prescriptive overtone. Servant leadership says, if you do this, then this will happen. If you empathize with your followers, they'll do what you ask them to do. If you give away your power, your followers will be stronger. But that doesn't necessarily always work in every single situation. So let's talk about some great examples of servant leaders. One of the first people that pops into my mind when I think of a servant leader is Archbishop Desmond Tutu. And when I was a little girl, which was a few years ago, I had the honor of being able to meet him when he came to visit us in Hawaii. The lower picture there shows him meeting with the Duke and Duchess of Sussex and their little baby boy, Archie, just recently when they went to visit South Africa. So some of the things that Desmond Tutu says are that servant leaders will show that they are servant leaders by not being afraid to suffer. Sacrifice is a key component to servant leadership. Desmond Tutu also says that servant leaders need to be inspiring. They need to be motivational. They need to be encouraging to their followers. And lastly, Desmond Tutu says that a servant leader represents the best of the aspirations of the people that they serve. The other person that pops into my mind as the ultimate servant leader is Mother Teresa. She's best known for her humanitarian work in India. Mother Teresa said, "The world is full of good people. If you can't find one, be one." And I feel like this quote really sums up what great servant leadership is all about. She also said, "Not all of us can do great things, but we can all do small things with great love." Love is one of the most important things for a servant leader. You have to be passionate about what you're doing. You have to love and care about your followers so that you can inspire them to achieve great things. So now, for the burning question. How can you use things like listening and having empathy, working collaboratively, empowering your followers to be a servant leader in your community? Well, it's pretty simple, really. Look at what the needs are in your community. Those could be social, environmental, or organizational needs. Ask yourself, how can I serve my community to make the changes that I want to see? Great servant leaders also have to be able to work without aim of recognition or praise. An award isn't going to do it. You have to be satisfied with just that warm, fuzzy feeling that you get in your heart that you made a difference in the world. Servant leaders also need to be able to work collaboratively with others and keep a positive and joyful heart. Just like with all leadership models, there's going to be challenges. Things are going to get tough. But you can never give up. You just have to stay positive and continue working with others, sharing power, lifting people up. That's the most important thing about being a servant leader. Alright everyone, we've come to the end of this video. If you have any questions, I would love to hear from you. Remember, great servant leaders put their followers first, empathize with them, and share their power, lifting them up. I challenge each of you to go out in the world and use servant leadership to make your community a better place. Have a great rest of your night. Bye-bye.